Look at these beauties. These are fairy tale eggplants, and despite the 107-degree temperatures, they're doing really well. There are fruit throughout the plant. There's lots of flowers, and a lot of the flowers are setting. So I'm seeing fruit really all over. There's even some back there. There's some down here. This is a happy plant, and it's probably 2.5 feet tall. Now this guy over here, this whole thing from there on up is one eggplant. It's probably 4 or 5 feet tall, and it is actually just starting to set fruit. Once it got to its full height and felt like it couldn't get any bigger, that's when it started to produce fruit. It's not like it's been any cooler or anything like that, but it has kind of reached a maximum size and then it started fruiting. So that may be a reason why things slow down. Let me tell you a couple of the reasons why I think these two plants in particular have been so successful. I have a few other eggplants that aren't doing as well, and I've got some good reasons as to why I think that is. To zoom out a little for this, but one of the reasons why I think this eggplant is doing so well, see it's all the way down there to all the way up there, and the one behind it as well, is actually that they're getting a few hours of shade a day. So they're not getting the full 8 hours of sun. That big tree over there and this building is blocking them from morning and all the way through about 11 a.m. sun. And the one on the further side, which is my fairy tale eggplant, which is doing even a little bit better, probably is getting even less sun. So in Texas, we love sun, but in Texas, there is too much of a good thing. So this guy has, ooh, I think that guy might be almost ready. So I'm going to pick eggplant a lot sooner in the summer than I normally would in the spring or fall. Once I look up the variety of this, I'll be able to tell whether it's ready or not. That one's about the length of my index finger. But I pulled some very small, probably length of my thumb, fairy tale eggplants last night and just popped them in the air fryer, and they tasted amazing. I'll show you about the length. Let's see. I'm picking them, I'm picking them a little bigger than this, probably another 1/2 inch maybe, because I'm worried about them getting stressed and tasting bitter. So eggplants, they will mature pretty quickly in the summer and they will go bitter really quickly. So as soon as they're kind of a reasonable size to harvest, I go ahead and harvest them, because it's just not worth them going bitter, because they do not taste good when they go bitter. And they're actually really sweet and savory when you pick them like this. And here, this plant's just covered. What I did just notice is this plant has a bunch of aphids on it. You see all the ants? Ants are kind of my #1 indicator that there are aphids around. So what I'm gonna do is actually go in and hose this plant down really seriously with the like full power spray of the nozzle of the hose, because that level of aphids is not good. I do think the aphid pressure is caused by the heat, because I think the plant goes into a little bit of stress, then it's not as able, because the plant goes into a little bit of stress and it's not as able to protect itself. So I'm gonna hose it down and I'll give it a good water as well. One of the other things that I think are really helping these eggplants is the depth of the bed. So this bed is in a decent amount of shade. It's getting shade either from the building during the morning and mid-afternoon, and then it's getting shade from the plants here and also from some plants over here. So the bed itself is actually not getting super hot, so it's not drying out too much. It's also very deep. This is I want to say 2.5 foot deep bed, and so it's able to retain moisture. And it's a little broken down there, but it's able to retain moisture really well. I put fresh compost on it every year, and I've also got a little bit of straw in here to also help with moisture retention. And I think that's part of the reason that these two plants are showing a lot more lush growth and a lot less stress than some of my other eggplants, which we'll go talk about now. All right, these are 2 eggplant bushes that are different varieties than those. This is a Rosa Blanca and a Udamulpet. I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but Udamulpet and a Rosa Bianca. And I will say my Rosa Bianca, this variety, the one on the right here is that's the Rosa Bianca. The one on the right, I had a Rosa Bianca last year that was planted just right over there in the far corner of that bed, and it did amazingly, really well. And there's 2 reasons I think that happened. One, this bed is newly established this year, and I didn't have very much dirt left over at the end of the planting season, and so I just threw whatever I had left in here. And this is probably only about 4 inches off of the ground, and so it's just got a lot less moisture retention, and so I think it's leaving the plants to be a lot more stressed. The bed over here, those are 12-inch boards that are making up the base of this. So it's 12-inch boards, so probably at least 10 inches worth of dirt, plus these are well-established beds that have been there for a while. And so there's a little more depth of soil there. And also this particular bed in the afternoon gets shade from this building right here. It kind of blocks some of the late afternoon sun. And so it'll get a little speckled sun toward the end of the day, but the sun kind of goes across a path right that way. And so it actually gets a decent amount of afternoon shade protection. Obviously it didn't help the zucchini, but I think that was more vine borers than anything. And so I think that's another reason. I think that's one of the reasons why these aren't doing as well. These 2 plants are getting almost no protection from the sun, and they are also not getting a lot of soil protection because the soil is not very deep there, and so it doesn't have the moisture to kind of buoy them against stress. The Rosa Bianca that I had last year did really well, and so I don't think it's the variety's fault over here. But the one on the left, I don't know if the reason why that one didn't do as well is because of the variety or because of the location. And I'm really tempted to say it's the location, because the Rosa Bianca I know did really well last year in a more shaded location, and I had a Rosa Bianca in my main garden bed, the one that has a ton of sun, and that one did not do well. So I think eggplants actually in Texas, you think they want full sun, they don't. They at least need some afternoon shade. So if you have a plant that's kind of struggling, I would actually recommend putting a shade cloth over, not necessarily the whole thing. If it's in full sun, I would have the shade cloth go over the afternoon shade side, or the afternoon side, and right over the top. So I've seen quite a few in our neighborhoods, like a black cloth. You put it over the top of the bed, and then on the westward side of the bed, like the west and south side. So you're covering kind of like 3 corners of it, and then it's getting morning sun and afternoon shade, or partial shade, which I actually think that would, the plants I've seen under those shade cloths in my neighborhood are doing much, much better. So that's my recommendation. Cover it with some shade cloth. I think that will help. There was somebody that asked this question, and I think that will help you get the plant to be under a little bit less stress and start being able to produce fruit. I am curious what variety you're growing, though. There are some that I would imagine would do better in Texas than others. I do know the Rosa Bianca, the Fairy Tale, and the other one, I don't know, the other one that's on my other garden, I don't know what its variety name is, but once I figure it out, I'll let you know. All right, well, thank you for the very, very good question, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Another thing I'll say about eggplants, especially these really big ones, is I don't prune them at all. So it's not like a tomato where you need to prune it. Even if it gets wild and out of control and huge, I don't see any reason to prune it. And I have had the most success when I didn't even try to direct the flow of the eggplant. I just kind of let it go. So I would not recommend pruning them, and just kind of let them go. I mean, in August in Texas, you're not going to have many other plants that are doing well anyway, and so letting them take over your garden, I think, is perfectly fine.